You wake up shivering. The blanketif you can call a sack stuffed with straw and fleas, a blanketis damp and coarse, barely covering your aching limbs. Your nose stings from the stink of the room, a mix of mildew, chamber pot fumes, and something rotting in the thatch above your head. There is no window, only a hole in the wall stuffed with cloth to keep out rats. Sunlight barely makes it through the cracks. It is morning in a medieval village, and you have somehow ended up in the life of a peasant. The first thing you notice besides the smell is the noise. Chickens clucking, pigs snorting, someone yelling at a goat. Everything is loud, and everyone is already awake. You missed the rooster. That was hours ago. The day here begins at dawn, or earlier, if you are unlucky, which you are. You sit up and scratch your neck, disturbing a flea that leaps to safety. Welcome to the Middle Ages, where your bedding comes pre-infested, and no one knows what a washing machine is. You rub your eyes and reach for your shoes, which are not really shoes. They are scraps of leather tied together with twine, stiff with dried mud and something else you cannot identify. They are wet. Everything is wet. You look around your homia, single room shared with everyone you know. Your parents, your siblings, maybe your grandparents if they are still alive. If they are not, they probably died in this same room. There is a fire pit in the center, now cold. No chimney, so the smoke from last night still clings to the roof beams like a ghost. The walls are made of wattle and daub, which is a fancy way of saying sticks and mud. The floor is dirt. You are one step above sleeping in a barn, except barns are usually cleaner. You head outside, careful not to trip on the dog, which might also be your neighbor's dog, or a stray, or dinner next week. The air outside is not much fresher. It smells like smoke, manure, and too many people living too close together. You step into the village lane more mud than pathand, nearly fall into a puddle. You think it is a puddle. It might be something worse. The Middle Ages do not have proper sewage. Waste runs in open trenches beside the road, and chamber pots are dumped with little warning. You learn quickly to look up, especially if someone opens a shutter. If you are unlucky, the term night soil becomes very personal. You are hungry. Of course you are. Everyone is. But breakfast is not a thing, not for peasants. You might chew on a crust of stale bread if there is any left from yesterday. If not, you go without. Hunger is not an event here, it is a lifestyle. Most peasants are in a constant state of mild starvation. Your teeth already hurt from chewing on barley bread so tough it could break a knife. You feel lucky if you have teeth. You glance at the sky, gray and low. Rain is coming. Again. Your tunic, made of rough wool, is already damp. It itches, clings, and smells like a sheep that died disappointed. You do not own a second one. You do not own much of anything. One bowl, one spoon, a knife if you are lucky. Clothes are hand-me-downs, passed down from people who died before reaching 30. You have no privacy, no comfort, no concept of leisure. You do not read. No one around you does. Books are for the church and the rich, and even they treat them more like relics than entertainment. You have heard the Bible, maybe, in Latina language. No one speaks mumbled by a priest who fears the devil lives in your left foot. You believe him because why not? You are terrified of everything. Hell, witches, famine, wolves, and that strange cough that took your cousin last week. Your hands are calloused. You are 13. Your back already hurts. You will not live long enough to retire. You might not live long enough to know what retire means. Childhood ends when you can lift a hoe, and education begins when you learn how not to starve. The Middle Ages are not designed for your happiness. They are barely designed for your survival. So you begin your day like everyone else with mud between your toes, hunger in your gut, and a quiet, creeping hope that today you will not step on a nail or offend a knight or catch something incurable from the water. This is day 1. You have 6 more to go. You wake up with hunger as your first thought. It is not a new sensation. It is your companion. The ache in your stomach is familiar, dull, and constant less a cry for food than a reminder that food is never guaranteed. You move slowly, joints stiff, muscles sore. You dreamed of eating last night, warm soup, cheese, maybe even meat. But now you are awake, and dreams do not count here. There is no breakfast waiting, no aroma of coffee, no clinking of dishes, no full table. What you have is a cold lump of barley bread, cracked and tough from sitting by the hearth overnight. It smells faintly of mildew. You pick it up, brush off the ash, and bite down. The bread is so dense you feel it could crack a tooth if your teeth were not already worn down from grit. You chew and chew, every bite, a reminder that the grain was ground on a stone mill, which means tiny fragments of rock made it into the dough. Medieval bread is basically edible sandpaper. Water, too, is a gamble. There is no plumbing, no filters, no taps. What you drink depends on what you can find. A well if your village has one, a stream if it is not too far, a bucket of rainwater if it has not gone green, or maybe the same stagnant pond that the cows stand in. Sanitation is a dream from the future, and thirst does not care about cholera. You fill your cup more like a hollowed-out piece of wood with something murky. It is warm. It smells like old leaves and dead insects. You drink anyway, because your body needs it. Because your other option is nothing. You try not to taste it. You fail. It tastes like dirt and decay. You close your eyes and swallow. Sometimes, if your village is lucky, there is beer. But beer in the Middle Ages is not the golden bubbly drink of modern times. It is thick, sour, and barely fermented. It is also safer than water, so even children drink it. Your breakfast might consist of a crust of bread and a mug of weak ale. The ale gives you a small comfort. It dulls the taste of the bread and maybe the ache in your gut. You are not drunk. No one gets drunk. The beer is too weak, but it is warm and vaguely clean. And in this world, that is enough. If it is a feast day, which happens often, thanks to the church you might get pottage. A thin stew made from whatever is left. Beans, onions, stale grains, maybe a turnip. Meat is rare. So rare that if you smell it cooking, you assume someone died and their family is honoring them with a feast. Most peasants eat meat only a few times a year. You might go your entire life never tasting beef. Bacon, maybe. If you are allowed to keep a pig, you hear your stomach growl again. You ignore it. Hunger is background noise. You are used to being underfed. You can recognize when your body starts turning on itself, when your hands shake from weakness, when your vision blurs. That is when you know it is bad. Not today, though. Today is just regular hunger. Manageable hunger. Almost comforting in its way. Around midday, you join the others for what passes as a communal meal. A pot of mush sits over the fire, thin and gray. Everyone gets a scoop. You dip your bread into it, hoping the heat softens it. It does, a little. The taste is bland. You imagine spice pepper, garlic, salt, but that is all they are. Imagination. Spices are for the rich. You are not rich. Flies hover over everything. There is no screen, no cover. You wave them away, knowing they will return. You eat anyway. Hygiene is not part of the culture. No one washes their hands. The idea that invisible things could make you sick is centuries away. You eat with fingers blackened by dirt and soot. You wipe your mouth with your sleeve. You do not question this. It is normal. As the day drags on, you grow weaker, not from exertion, from lack of fuel. Your body runs on fumes. You think about food constantly. When you are working, when you are resting, when you are supposed to be praying, hunger lives in your spine. It rides your breath. You dream of eggs, honey, butter, fresh fruit. But those things belong to someone else. To the Lord of the Manor, to the clergy, not to you. You are at the bottom of the food chain, literally. You eat what others discard, if anything. You chew your bread, sip your cloudy beer, and pray for rain, not just for the crops, but because sometimes rainwater tastes better than what you find in the ditch. This is day 2. You have 5 more to go. You wake up sore. Your hands feel like stone, your back like it is packed with splinters. You slept badly. Again. The straw mattress has shifted, and now your hip bone rests against the cold, hard earth. The fire went out in the night. There is no chimney, so the smoke from last night's attempt at warmth still hovers in the air. You inhale and cough. There is no time to rest. The sun has not yet climbed above the horizon, but already your village is stirring. Work begins early because the day is short and the tasks are endless. You rise with a groan, shoulders aching, fingers already cracked from cold and use. You dress in the same damp tunic as yesterday, and the day before that, and the week before that. You do not own another. Outside, it is muddy, always muddy. Rain fell during the night, soaking the dirt path and turning it into something that swallows your feet. You trudge to your task. Maybe you are a field hand. Maybe you tend livestock. Maybe you are lucky and work inside milling grain, weaving cloth, repairing tools. The truth is, it does not matter. All jobs feel the same. Endless, repetitive, backbreaking. If you are in the fields, you will bend over for hours, planting or harvesting or digging or hauling. If you are working with animals, expect kicks, bites, and manure. If you are a child, you fetch water or chase birds away from crops or collect dung for fuel. No one is spared. Not the old, not the young, not the sick. If you can stand, you can work. There are no breaks, no unions, no lunch hours. You eat when someone says you can. You stop only if you faint. If you are caught resting, you are lazy. If you complain, you are ungrateful. Your body is not your own, it belongs to your family, your manor, your village, your God. Everyone is tired. No one cares. Tools are primitive. Hoes and sickles, rough wooden plows pulled by equally exhausted oxen. No steel, no machines, no mercy. The blisters on your hands have turned into calluses, and even those have begun to crack. You do not have gloves, you do not have boots. Your feet are wet, your fingers numb. Lunch is a concept. You might pause to gnaw on something tough and flavorless. Bread again, maybe a dried root. If you are fortunate, someone shares a scoop of pottage. But there is no time to savor. The sky does not wait. The crops do not wait. The Lord of the manor does not wait. You work through weather. Rain, snow, blistering soon, it makes no difference. Your job is survival. Your tools rot, your clothes tear, your fingers bleed. Still, you dig, you lift, you haul. The ache in your shoulders becomes part of you, like your name. You forget what it feels like not to hurt. If you are building something like a wall or a road, you carry stones heavier than your own body weight. No cranes, no pulleys, just you, a rope, and a prayer. If you drop the stone, you break a toe, or a foot, or your back, and there is no hospital. You keep working, limping, teeth clenched, eyes watering. The sun begins to sink. Finally, your fingers are black with soil, your knees soaked, your back locked in place. You stagger home. You do not bathe. There is no bath. You scrape the mud from your hands with a rock and hope the smell fades before you fall asleep. It won't. You sit by the fire and say nothing. No one says anything. Everyone is too tired. The silence is heavy. Even the children do not play. There is nothing to play with, and no one has the energy. You eat whatever is left, chew slowly, stare into the flames. Tomorrow will be the same. You have a splinter the size of a nail in your palm. You pull it out with your teeth. You feel it all. You suck the blood and taste dirt. You do not cry. Not because it does not hurt, but because you know it will happen again. This is day 3. You have 4 more to go. You wake up coughing. Not from smoke this time, though there is always smoke. This cough is deeper, wet. You feel it in your ribs, in the hollow between your shoulders. You spit into the dirt and see a streak of red. That is never good. But it is not rare. Everyone you know has coughed like this. Some got better. Some disappeared. You do not know what happened to them. They left one day and never came back. Or they stayed in bed until they stopped moving. No funerals. Just a hole in the ground and maybe a cross if someone had the energy. The sick do not last long. There are no hospitals, no doctors in white coats, just local healers who carry dried herbs, animal fat, and prayers. You feel hot, then cold, then hot again. You shiver even as sweat runs down your spine. You sit near the fire and wrap yourself in a blanket that smells like goat. You have no thermometer, no medicine. The closest thing to treatment is a mixture of crushed garlic, wine, and hope. And maybe leeches. You have seen them used. They are meant to suck out the bad humors. Your neighbor has a swollen leg, purple, oozing. He says it is nothing, just a cut that got infected. You do not believe him. You saw his brother's leg turn the same color last year, then black, then gone. They buried him in a shallow grave near the woods. He was 17. Children die here all the time. Infant mortality is not a statistic, it is a rhythm, a pattern, a reality. Women give birth surrounded by other women, a bucket and a knife. No painkillers, no antiseptic, blood everywhere, screaming, then silence. Maybe a baby cries, maybe it does not. Maybe the mother lives, maybe she does not. Everyone just hopes for the best and expects the worst. You remember when your sister died. She had a fever. She was fine that morning, laughing. By nightfall, she could not stand. By morning, she was gone. Your mother wailed like an animal. Your father sat still. He never spoke of it again. Neither did you. You know what plague is, even if no one calls it that. The word spreads faster than the disease. People start whispering, avoiding one another, closing doors. But it never helps. Rats are everywhere. Fleas, too. They live in your bedding, in your clothes, in your hair. You kill one, 10 replace it. They bite, they itch, they bring death. When someone dies, their body is carried away quickly. There is no embalming, no casket, no procession, just a cart. Sometimes 2 or 3 bodies at once, wrapped in cloth if available, dumped in a pit if not. The priest mumbles something, draws a cross in the air. Then life continues. You wonder how many more times your body can fight off infection. You have had fevers, boils, toothaches that made your vision blur. Your gums bleed when you eat. Your belly swells when you drink the wrong water. You lose weight, gain nothing. Your nails split. Your skin cracks. You heal slowly, if at all. You heard once of a man who traveled and came back with a jar of honey. He gave a spoonful to a dying child. The child smiled, then stopped breathing. You are not sure what that story means, but you remember it. Because honey is rare, because smiling is rare, because dying is not. There is a woman in the village, they say, is a healer. She burns sage and chants old words. Some call her wise. Others call her a witch. You are not sure there is a difference. One cures, the other gets burned. Depends on the season. Depends on the priest. You lie down early. Not because you are tired, though you are, but because your bones hurt. You feel the fever behind your eyes. You wrap yourself tighter and pray you make it through the night. No one will check on you. If you do not wake up, someone else will sleep in your spot. This is day 4. You have 3 more to go. You wake up to shouting. Not unusual. Voices raised in anger are as common as roosters here. A man is being dragged through the village square. His face is bloody. His shirt is torn. No one stops it. No one asks what he did. They assume he deserves it. That is how things work here. Justice is not about proof, it is about power. You are a peasant. That means you are property. You belong to the land. The land belongs to the Lord. So, by extension, you belong to the Lord. He decides what is fair, what is law, what is punishment. There is no vote, no trial. If the steward says you stole grain, then you did. If the bailiff says you owe taxes, then you pay. If you cannot, you suffer. The social order is simple. At the top is the king. Below him, nobles, then knights, then freemen, then serfs, then you. But you are not even sure where you fall. Sometimes you feel like you are below the animals. At least the animals are fed regularly. The lord of your manor owns everything. The fields, the woods, the mills, the fish in the river. If you catch a rabbit without permission, it is poaching. If you cut firewood without asking, it is theft. If you complain, it is rebellion. All of it can get you fined, or whipped, or worse. Violence is not rare. It is routine. Fights break out in the fields. A bad harvest brings blame. A death brings accusation. A rumor brings blood. Knives are cheap. Tempers are shorter than daylight in winter. You have seen men die over bread, over insults, over nothing. There is no police force. no judge. If a knight kills a peasant, it is considered a misunderstanding. If a peasant strikes a noble, it is treason. You once saw a man beaten for looking at the reeve's wife too long. He lost an eye. Now he begs for scraps, blind on one side, ignored by all. Women fare no better. They are property too. First to their fathers, then to their husbands. If a man beats his wife, no one interferes. It is his right. If she speaks out, she is labeled unruly, or possessed, or worse, a witch. Accusation alone is enough. Proof is optional. Punishment is swift. You have heard of trials by ordeal, where someone is thrown into a river to prove their innocence. If they float, they are guilty witchcraft. If they sink, they are innocent but dead. Either way, justice is served. That is the logic. That is the law. You stay silent, always. You keep your head down. You do not draw attention. That is survival. You do not challenge the hierarchy. You do not ask questions. You do what you are told. When to eat, when to fast, when to kneel, when to bleed. Sometimes you dream of escape, of running to a city, of hiding in the woods. But cities are full of filth and disease. Woods are full of wolves and outlaws. And even there, the reach of the nobility stretches far. There is no outside, only different kinds of cages. At night, the shouting stops, but not the fear. You lie awake, thinking of the man who screamed this morning. You wonder if he is still alive. You wonder what he did. You wonder if it matters. This is day 6. You have one more to go. You wake up and feel nothing. Not because you are healed, but because the pain has become normal. The ache in your spine, the rawness in your throat, the tightness in your stomach, they are part of you now, like your name, like your fear. It is the 7th day, the last day of the week. But that does not mean rest. It only means another round, another rotation in the same endless cycle. The sky is gray again. The air is damp. Your blanket still smells like mold. You step outside and see the same mud, the same faces, the same sagging huts. Nothing has changed, except you. You are thinner, hungrier, quieter, more tired than you knew a person could be. You have seen death, felt sickness, labored until your body gave out. You have obeyed without understanding, knelt without believing, eaten without chewing. You have become what this world demands. Small, silent, obedient. But still, you are alive. You stand in the square and watch children play with sticks. They laugh, not because they are happy, but because they do not yet understand. You envy them. You fear for them. You see in their games the shape of the life ahead. Work, hunger, obedience, cold. You want to tell them, but you say nothing. Because no one warned you, either. A man walks by. He nods. You nod back. That is all the communication you need. There is no time for stories, no room for dreams. You both know what the other knows, that survival is victory, that another day is a kind of miracle. You think of everything you miss: warmth, privacy, medicine, safety, a bed without bugs, bread without grit, a day without fear. You think of how soft your old life was if you ever had one, of water from a tap, of light from a switch, of laughter not soaked in pain. You ask yourself a question, quietly, in your mind. Could you survive here for real? Not just for a day, not just for a week, but forever? Could you live a lifetime in this place, in this skin, in this silence? You are not sure. You do not speak. You do not cry. You simply breathe. That is enough. That is everything. This is the end of the week. But the Middle Ages do not care about weeks. Or you. Tomorrow will look like today, and the day after, and the one after that. Unless you wake up, back in your world, with clean water, with painkillers, with justice, with breakfast. If that happens, remember this: survival was never guaranteed. Comfort was never normal. What you have now, whatever it is a miracle that someone in this century could not even imagine. So do not forget the week you almost didn't survive.